So today, as I said, we're going to talk about the inner critic. So I have a colleague with me today who's going to ask a few questions around it so as to maybe uncover what it means to different people, and we're going to discuss different ways of maybe overcoming it or challenging it. The inner critic is the voice in our head that can condemn us or maybe lift us up, or they don't always say bad things to us, but most of the time an inner critic will be a voice that is with us constantly. If we maybe have eaten too much, it'll criticise and judge us. If we've maybe people pleased, it will criticise us for not standing up for ourselves. It will make us feel bad. If we're procrastinating, it will talk about you're never going to achieve this, you're never going to get through this. So it's a voice that normally keeps us stuck or in a cycle of self-doubt and self-judgment and self-hatred. So to really understand the self-critic, we need to familiarise ourselves with the self-critic. And many people have asked me, how do you actually do that? So the way I would do it, I always, think of the voice in your head as another person. And I take the voice out of my head and turn it into a person, and I walk down the street with it. And I kind of find out what it's saying to me. And a lot of the time it would have been saying in the past, you're never going to achieve this, you're too fat, you're not doing enough exercise, you're not eating properly. It was this constant criticism of you're not good enough. So it was only when I familiarised myself with that inner critic, I was able to challenge it and reality check what was true and what wasn't true. And most of it wasn't true. So the thing that I'm really curious about is why we do it to ourselves, because if we don't become aware of it, or we're doing it for years and years and years, and it's chipping away at our confidence or self-esteem or self-efficacy, and in the process then we choose the wrong partner, we settle for the wrong job, we hang out with the wrong friends, we don't look after ourselves the way we should. So I think if we can familiarise ourselves with her, get to know her, and stop her, or understand her and show her compassion, or silence her, there's something we need to do to stop the pain. So if you think about this for a moment, if you're walking down the street with a friend of yours and she starts saying to you, Ashley, you're too fat, you're not good enough, you need to be better, you're not academic enough, how long would you actually walk down the street with that person? I'm assuming it wouldn't be very long, because you know how damaging it is. And yet, day in, day out, you think it's okay to do it to yourself through your own self-talk. So that's what an inner critic is. And I think the amount of pain it causes depends on the trauma we've suffered in our childhood. So I think everything can revert back to our childhood. So if you've been criticised a lot by your parents, your perfectionist parents, or maybe teachers or peers, and it really affected you, that can make the critical voice inside your head much louder or lower, depending on what you've been through. So for me, it's about asking a few questions. Why am I doing this to myself? What am I gaining from this? How can I prevent this from escalating? What do I need to do to befriend myself in order to have a life that I'm proud of most of the time? As a society, we struggle with self-compassion. We will give compassion to our friends, to our family. We'll, hug our children. We'll show love to other people. But do we ever hug ourselves? Do we ever say, you're doing great, and that voice isn't really who you are? For people, it's a difficult thing to show themselves love and compassion, because it's not something that's explored. Like if you turn on the television, everything is, you need to diet, you need to look a certain way. So it's very hard to show yourself compassion when you never feel that you're reaching this imaginary image that it's so far out of reach for us that we're constantly crawling or trying to reach it. So it's not reasonable for us to try and be what everybody else wants us to be, because we're not designed like that. We're designed to be true to who we are, whatever that might be. So some people are made small and heavier and athletic. Some people are made tall with curly hair. They should, be delighted with that and emphasize and elaborate on that beauty, rather than trying to attain something like blonde hair and dark skin and blue eyes when you don't have any of those features. But we're sold this false image continuously, so as that we'll never find our inner beauty. Because when you find your inner beauty and you like who you are, you don't spend money, because you don't need to. You're content, you're happy, you like who you are, so you don't have to fill that void with more and more and more. So that's not good for business. So in general, the inner critic will keep us shopping. So as long as outside forces can keep the inner critic active, we spend our money on trying to fix the inner critic. But the only way we really fix the inner critic is intrinsically. It's with self-love, self-support, accepting ourselves, flaws and all, for who we are. The reality of it is stop trying to be what you're not. Accept who you are and build on that. I heard a story once and it really, stayed with me. It was about in the 1970s, there was a garbage strike in New York, and there was loads of rubbish piled everywhere, and it just looked absolutely awful. And there was this woman who knew a newspaper reporter, so she rang him and she said, look, is there any chance you'll come and take a few photos and let them see how bad this is, so as they'll try and fix it for us. The smell, we've young children, the whole lot. So he said, yeah, you come down, you take a few photos. So when he came down, he was astounded by what he saw, and he said to the woman, would there be any small child who could sit on the rubbish to emphasize how much rubbish there actually is with a small child? So the woman says, yeah, no problem, my daughter's here, and she brings out her beautiful little 9-year-old daughter, and he sits the daughter up on the rubbish and takes a few pictures. And within days, the pictures were everywhere, and the kid was going to school the next day thinking, oh, I'm going to be famous, I'm in the papers, and really, really excited. But as soon as she got up to the gates of the school, the name calling started, the garbage girl, and you're no good, and look at you, you're only rubbish, and it broke her heart. And for years after that, she hid in her bedroom and read books, and it took something from her, but she also gained something from it. She gained all this knowledge around make-believing, pretending to be somebody else, because she needed that at the time to survive. And she became this wonderful artist in theatre. So I often believe everybody pricks their finger and something happens to them. But when you prick your finger, you can either dive and become a victim of it, or you can thrive and become a warrior of it. So she became a warrior of it. So in thinking about all of that, we all have war stories. Everybody has something bad or neglectful or hurtful that's happened to them. So it's about turning that into something that can help us become powerful rather than vulnerable. And vulnerability, for me, most of the time is a strength, but sometimes people can get lost in it. Okay, so thoughts aren't facts. Thoughts are just thoughts. So we get thousands. They reckon we get 76,000 thoughts a day. So if we were to believe all of those thoughts, we'd all probably be considered crazy. So thoughts aren't facts unless we act on the thought. So you can see somebody and think, oh my God, their hair looks really strange, but you're not necessarily going to tell them that. So it's only a thought. So let the thought go. So when you hear the thoughts, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm fat, or I'm ugly, or whatever the thoughts might be, you need to reality check them. You need to question them. Why am I saying that? Is that true? Where did that come from? And sometimes maybe people have said it to you. Maybe somebody has said to you, you're ugly, or you're fat, or you're not good enough. But I always believe that people who say nasty things to other people It's a projection of how they feel about the world. So they project it onto us, and then we take it on as our belief system. But why do we do that? Why would we take on someone else's thoughts about us when they don't even probably know who we are? That's because we already have low self-esteem or low self-efficacy. So low self-esteem is how other people see us. You know, the view of other people seeing us. So we're concerned about that. So if we're concerned about that at a high level, that means we've low self-esteem. Low self-efficacy is the belief that you can't achieve anything, that goals are too hard for you to accomplish. So you believe because you're not reaching these unattainable goals for a lot of people that you're failing. Okay? So self-esteem and self-efficacy go hand in hand. We need to have both in order to minimize the effects of the inner critic. So thoughts, remember, question the thoughts. You know, think about why people say things to us. The only time I've ever said anything mean or bad to somebody else is because I was feeling mean and bad. So why would you take on my reality as your reality? You know? So if you do allow that to happen, then your feelings of the day are dependent on how I feel. So if I'm having a bad day and you're allowing me to control your emotional state and your psychological state, chances are you're going to have a bad day. So you have to understand that how I feel on a day has nothing to do with you. So it's about not taking it personal. So when I project onto you that you can wake me up and say, Adrianna, that's not acceptable. I'm sorry that you're having a bad day. I'm sorry that you're not feeling good about yourself today, but please don't project onto me. It's not acceptable. And that's a boundary. So we also need boundaries with our inner critic, that we have to stop them, you know? But a lot of us don't have boundaries. We've never been taught boundaries. People can say and do and be whatever they like to us because we need to people please. So there's many different types of critics. There's the perfectionist, the people pleaser, the conformist, the angry, the guilt-ridden critic. There's so many different types. You have to identify your one and overcome your critic with love and compassion, because most criticism comes from pain. So don't try and do it by correcting and berating yourself. Do it from, imagine yourself as a child, okay? Or imagine, if you can't imagine yourself as a child, imagine your own child. And your own child comes in and says to you, Mary across the road told me that I'm ugly and I'm fat. Do you say, well, yeah, she's right? No, of course you don't. You say, oh my God, why did she say that? That's so silly. Look in the mirror, you're so pretty and you're beautiful. God, she must be having a really bad day. I'm really sorry for her. So why can't we do the same thing? So when we hear our inner critic, why don't we challenge her? Go, come on, that's not true. You know you're beautiful. You're a brilliant person. You just had a bit of trauma. Let's get through it together. So we get so much further with compassion. We want to do so much more when people give us compassion and show us compassion than when somebody throws hate and anger and horrid stuff towards us. We don't want to do anything for them. So that's the same as your inner critic. You don't want to do anything for her. You're angry with her. So show her love. Show her compassion, show her friendship. Turn it all around. Do whatever you have to do to become her best friend, to make her feel good about herself. And then she'll become your best friend. And that's when you will pick the best friends for you. You will only accept the job that makes you thrive. You will only marry the man that makes you smile and is kind to you. You will live the life that you're supposed to live. You won't just settle for the, be grand. It's going to be great.